Welcome to this lesson on digital distraction. My name is Joe Schulte, and I've been asked to go through a presentation that I give to incoming freshmen on the topic. A little bit about me. This is a biopic of mine from Twitter, and I'm from Sartell High School. I've taught technology education there for 13 years, and just this last year became a full-time instructional technology specialist. So I'm working primarily with teachers to develop content for their classes that helps with our one-to-one initiative. We have a full access laptop initiative, MacBook Airs 9 through 12, and so we have been thrust headlong into the realities of digital distraction and digital citizenship and all that comes with it. So that being said, I'll try to focus on this and keep it concise. I'm referencing just a few things I've come across this year. TIES 2014, Erin Walsh, Mind Positive Parenting. She's presented at a number of schools in the area. So what are we talking about here? I think we have to address the primaries that can be avoidance behaviors for kids. Social media, primarily female, although definitely males are texting and on Twitter. But when we talk about the predominant majority or who is affected more, it's female. On the other hand, gaming, more males are involved in gaming, and I broke it down into types of games here. And then passive viewing, just the what are we watching, and this is kind of everybody too. A lot of YouTube, Netflix, and I thought I'd throw books in there just because some people can still get lost in a good book once in a while, and that's okay. Just a graphic that I had found online, which I think is compelling, and again, focuses just on social media, but we'll go beyond that in this. This was a statistic I got from Leslie Yoder at TIES 2014, and I think it is very compelling that for the first time in history, we are looking at smartphones more than we are televisions, and it's just a sign of how we are in the wild, wild west of technology right now. A few more thoughts from her. She really is an advocate on being able to focus attentively on one thing at a time and feels we are losing that to a great degree. Thinks we can't deep read anymore, and that is one of the skills that we are going to need moving forward. So to go along further with that deep reading, really we've learned to skim context. So this is eye tracking, web surfing, and what we read. We look at the pop-ups and the bold things, and then we kind of peruse through the information, but we don't read it for all of its content. And we need to focus on teaching that skill or reteaching it to our digital learners. Some more statistics on this. Some of the ones that I found interesting: an average of 150 texts per day, and this is for teens who text. And I think what's important there is there's teens who don't, and so they're just not in that spectrum. But the ones who do are doing it a lot. And this one too, we tell our students this, and when we say it, it can take up to 15 minutes to refocus on a task, and then you're interrupted all day constantly with things like text messages. You never actually can truly focus on anything. A little bit more on distraction. What we see is happening is that people can't multitask, and we'll address this a little bit more. They think they can, but they're taking in multiple sources, and it essentially just weakens their brain. And this is a quote from Dr. Yoder here, that deep reading is indistinguishable from deep thinking, and that we're losing that ability. So I ask the students, are you able to read an article from start to finish without being distracted? And usually the answer is no. And I would have to say I'm pretty guilty of that too, that I don't usually sit down and have the ability to get through an article on my computer without being interrupted by something. So we do a little bit, we talk a little bit about action with the students and what they can do, and a lot of it is phone-based. We really haven't looked a lot at computer-wise what to do with this, because there are pop-ups and interruptions, and certainly there's intentional interruptions, which we'll talk about a little bit more. But just how do you control your phone and your notification centers and to encourage them to turn it off when they are not using it. We'll get to that in study habits. Slides, again, adapted from TIES 2014. At work, we all are probably guilty of this, and we all have been told or convinced ourselves that we can multitask, and research is showing that it's really not the case. In fact, what it does is it makes us dumber, and that on average we're losing productivity because of distractions. And what does that add up to annually, and how does it have an effect on our brain? And I can tell you that I'm very guilty of this, and just kind of realizing that true multitasking doesn't actually occur. You can do one thing at a time, and you can bounce back and forth from those things. But the more you bounce back and forth, the more this kind of stuff happens. So what does multitasking do? Result in a disorganized mind, impairs your ability to think clearly, or to distinguish between relevant and irrelevant information, which I would say I'm guilty of as far as prioritizing. And I think I can filter well yet on the content and the source, but prioritizing is something that I struggle with. And then impairs our ability to effectively switch between tasks. How many of you have been just caught in the middle where you feel like you should do both, or you're jumping back and forth and don't actually get anything done? That can be a sign of being overwhelmed too. And her source for this was here. So I think that's the root source of that information. So we encourage students to look at eliminating distraction during study times, and what does that look like? We've said 1 hour, but recent statistics are saying even as little as 15 minutes of study time can be rewarded with 5 minutes of reward or break time. Additionally, if they can identify that they have an addiction, we want to take it a little further, and we really haven't gotten beyond this. Just things like a link here that kids could look at. What does this look like for me? This was posted not too long ago in January, and it has applications that go along with it to monitor phone usage, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But it's really just a way to self-audit and see how much you are using your phone, how much you're checking your phone, how much of a crutch it is. Again, on study habits, these are just things that most of us know, but studying in the morning or over lunch, resting instead of studying further, those are kind of some basic study skills things, but take on a new dimension with computers.